Alright, so we're going to be talking about changing the 2 4-year terms of presidency to one single 6-year term. The idea of a 6-year term for president and vice president has a long history. The first amendment to this effect was introduced in 1826 in the 19th Congress. And a total of 184 such amendments have been introduced by 1981. And an additional 24 proposed in the 97th through the 104th Congress. The first efforts to repeal the 22nd Amendment began in 1956, just 5 years after the amendment was ratified. The 22nd Amendment states that no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. So to start off, I would like to argue that by having a 1 6-year term would make an election more fair. As of now, presidents have unfair campaign advantages by getting free media coverage in their roles as president, while their opponents receive less coverage as mere candidates. Therefore, the challengers have to raise a lot of money to counteract this. A single-term president would alleviate this stress. President Carter actually agreed with this claim and stated, "I think that if I had a 6-year term without any possibility of re-election, it would be an improvement. No matter what I do as president now, where I am really trying to ignore politics and stay away from any sort of campaign plans, so forth, a lot of what I do is colored through media and in the minds of the American people, thinking whether am I doing this as a campaign ploy or is it genuine, being done in the best interest of our country, without any sort of personal advantage involved." And that was actually a quote from President Carter himself. Another case of this happened to President Nixon, who acknowledged in his book, The Real War, that he exaggerated the potential detonate in 1972 because he wanted political credit in the coming debate. Therefore, the break-in at the Watergate Hotel was directly attributed to Nixon's administration's being obsessed with re-elections. Another idea is that 2 terms actually delays decision-making in office, meaning that special interests and short-term consideration, which are good for re-election, are afforded priority, while the long-term good of the country as a whole is frequently neglected. A 6-year term would give the president security in office, and he would not have to play politics his whole first term as it is now. The president spends the majority of his first term to get himself reelected instead of looking out for the best interests of the people. A direct example of this was during President Kennedy's first term, when he told Mansfield, the senator, that he had been having serious thoughts about Mansfield's argument that he now agreed with the senator's thinking on the need to have a complete military withdrawal from Vietnam. But after making this claim, the president went on to say that he couldn't do this until after he was reelected. Kennedy felt like if he announced a total withdrawal of the American military from Vietnam before the 1964 election, then there would be a lesser chance of him returning to office. And then President Eisenhower also agreed with a single 6-year term and stated after leaving office that he strongly believed that he would have been able to function more efficiently once the pressure of re-elections were removed. My next claim is that 1 6-year term would eliminate 2 years of campaigning on our payroll. We pay our president for 6 years of leadership and 2 years of campaigning on our expense. Analysis suggests that in the upcoming 2012 campaign, that we'll find political costs for the campaign at around $2 billion, and the country would save actually $16 to $18 billion with the 6-year presidential terms over the same period. And as of now, there are 15 presidential campaigns in a century with 50 major political party conventions. If we switch to a single 6-year term, it would reduce these numbers by roughly 1/3, so saving 1/3 of that money, and not having to put on the convention and the campaigns. And this was stated in the Tampa Bay Times. Not only this, but 4 years is not enough time to test any president's leadership. A foreign policy advisor to former President Nixon offered the following. He said, "I am in favor of a 6-year term because we frankly don't have enough time to get going as it is. We are working on several things now that we are just developing and will have to be dropped this year or next because of political restraints involved in the 1972 election. There can be some excellent results if we keep pushing, but we are being held back." Some of the president's political aides are already sending memos in that effect, saying that they're too busy focusing on the election, that they didn't have enough time to go through with the plans that they wanted to go through with. And former Attorney General Griffin Bell observed, "A president now spends his first 3 years in office just establishing control over the bureaucracy. The current 4-year term is actually too short to achieve any of the major changes and improvements that a president should accomplish." A 6-year term would have additional substance because it would give the president more time to implement these policies that he wants to and to adjust them as necessary and also to monitor their success. This would give the president initiatives as a fair chance to work. And then last but not least, the idea of a 6-year presidential term is not going to go away until it happens. This reform was first introduced in 1829 and has been introduced more than 160 times since then and is obviously going to surface again. And there have been 15 presidents who have endorsed the single 6-year term. That's 38% of presidents, and as well as numerous cabinet members, congresspersons, and civil leaders.